What's going on, YouTube? Welcome to the Stay Locked In podcast. If you somehow stumbled upon this video, go ahead and hit that like, subscribe, and notification button down below for more content. I got a crazy goal of about 10,000 subscribers. If you can help me manifest my goal into a reality, I would really appreciate it. With that being said, let's go ahead. Let's get right into this video. Let's go ahead and lock the in. All right, so boom. All right, let's get right into this video. Jake Paul versus Tommy Fury. Incredible fight, man. I was thoroughly entertained and surprised with the fight. First and foremost, man, you got to tip your hat and give credit where credit is due to Jake Paul. Just first and foremost, from the crowd that he was able to draw out there in Saudi Arabia. He's selling out arenas. He's drawing, some of the top names in boxing. I believe Sean Porter was commentating. You had dudes like Mike Tyson, Tyson Fury, Devin Haney, Deontay Wilder. All of these dudes that came out to see this man fight. It's an incredible feat, man, when you think about it, when you put it in perspective of Jake Paul, where he started, doing exhibitions to fighting dudes like Nate Robinson, to drawing a crowd and some of the top names in boxing is commendable, man. Shout out to Jake Paul for that. Also you got to give him his credit, man. He stood in there with a boxer, somebody who is considered a boxer and comes from a boxing family, and he stood in there toe to toe and held his own, man. So you got to give him his credit, man. I was waiting to see what he looked like in there with a boxer, and he has now did that, and I was surprised, man. He held his own. He held his own, to say the least. But with that being said, let's get right into the fight. First round, it was kind of a first couple of rounds were pretty slow paced. They seemed to be like feel out rounds. Wasn't a lot going on. But it was clear as day that, Tommy Fury was probably the better polished and seasoned boxer in there. He just looked more crisp. His punches, he was throwing out a lot of jabs, and just his lateral movement and movement around the ring, you could tell was just a notch above Jake Paul. I feel like I said, it was first couple of feel out rounds, and then the third and the fourth is when Tommy Fury, he started opening up with combinations, and really started getting into a rhythm. He was really getting into a rhythm. I think he was timing Jake Paul, making him miss. Jake Paul was throwing a lot of wild, I don't want to say almost haymakers, but wild, blind, overhand rights. And he did catch Tommy with a couple of those, and it seemed to be that Tommy ate it and took it well, man. He took it on the chin. Pause. But Jake, he was throwing he caught Tommy with a couple of check hooks pretty much throughout the whole fight. But it seemed to be that Tommy was controlling and dominating the fight. Just to me personally, he was the busier fighter. He was throwing more. He landed more. He was making Jake Paul miss more. And I believe by like the 6th or 7th round, it looked to me that Jake Paul was gassed. You know what I mean? Like I said, he was throwing a lot of those overhand rights and check hooks. But that was pretty much all he had, like in his game plan, in his repertoire. You know what I mean? So he did start opening up later in the rounds. He started incorporating a jab to his game plan, and he actually hit Tommy Fury with a couple of good jabs. And but to me, Tommy Fury was just controlling the fight, man. He was beating him up pretty much the entire fight, catching him with some good shots. Jake Paul had a couple of good shots in there too as well. but for the most part, Tommy Fury was pretty much controlling it. I thought it was a good fight. I would love to personally see a rematch. I think the refs were doing a little bit too much. The ref, was just doing a little bit too much. You gotta let some of these things go. Let these guys fight. You know what I mean? I believe he deducted a point from each of them in separate rounds. One, Jake Paul, I believe, for hitting in the back of the head, and then Tommy Fury for, I believe, pushing down. So I mean, it kind of evened out, but at the same time, this is novice boxing. You know what I'm saying? Like, we gotta let some of these guys, some of these little penalties and stuff go. I mean, back of the head stuff, yeah, you gotta nip that in the bud. And I believe he did give Jake Paul a few warnings about that. So, but I just felt like the ref was way too involved in the fight, slowing up the pace, stopping it, calling timeouts. Like, come on, man, cut it out. What I will say is that there was a lot of clinching and hugging. Like, these dudes was hugging more than a damn family reunion. Like, it's crazy, man. Like I said, I think that's due to Jake Paul obviously being gassed and not being in the best or tip-top shape. And I think he was just trying to catch his breath, a couple of times. With that being said, though, final round, they came out, and maybe I think within 30 seconds of the round, Jake Paul knocked down Tommy Fury. It was a knockdown, but it wasn't like a stunned, buzzed, or like a flash knockdown or anything like that. To me, it just seemed more of him being off balance and slipping and stuff like that. It looked more like a slip than it did a knockdown. But even in that round, Tommy Fury came out and pretty much controlled the rest of the fight. You know what I mean? Rest of the round, he was out there just throwing combinations, sticking and moving. He looked like a boxer. And then it came down to the decision. There was one judge that scored it for Jake Paul, and then two that scored it for Tommy Fury, and rightfully so. You go to the punch stat sheets. Tommy Fury clearly dominated the fight. And like I said, man, I think Jake has to incorporate that jab into his game plan a little bit more. And I believe he has to get some more tricks under his, in his trick bag. I think he was throwing a lot of wild, blind, overhand rights. And I think he was just relying on that overhand right just a little bit too much. But overall, he fought a good fight, man, and credit to him and kudos to him. Even though he was gassed and he was in there with a boxer, he stayed on his feet. We still have not seen Jake Paul touch the canvas, and he's been in there with some reputable guys, man. You know what I mean? Anderson Silva, Tyrone Woodley, and now Tommy Fury, who is a boxer. With that being said, I mean, it's crazy that the first time he actually got in there with somebody that was around his age and is actually considered a boxer, he loses. But hey, man, it's yet to be seen. I'm all for another fight. I would love to see another fight. And I think this fight warranted another fight. I think the knockdown kind of evened things out, I believe, a little bit, or more so. But if it wasn't for that knockdown, I think it was pretty much like a complete shutout. But you guys get down in the comments section. Let me know what you thought about the fight. Let me know if you guys would want to see another fight. Anybody who wants me to react to anything or to get in contact with me, send it to staylockedin24@gmail.com. And with that being said, I hope everybody out there stays focused, stays prosperous, and stays locked in.